Hello and welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Football Forecast. I'm your host, Trevor Scott, doing a solo episode for you guys today. And today we're going to get into the start and sit for wide receivers this week, going into week 14. This is the last week of the regular season. A lot of you guys are going to be struggling to get wins, make it into the playoffs, get better seeding, maybe try and secure a bye week. So big week coming up this week, obviously. And if you're here with us, if you're listening and you haven't subscribed yet, I would appreciate throwing a subscribe for our way, trying to get to that 325 mark, and we'll set new goals as we continue to hit these benchmarks. So without further ado, let's get into the players. So the first guy I want to talk about is Davante Adams. So he goes up against Miami this week, and it's really difficult at this point to deny his workload. He has gotten so many targets throughout the whole year. He just put up another double-digit target week. He scored a touchdown, and I will say, too, in this game, he got a little unlucky. He got called for an offensive pass interference on like a 40-plus yard play. So he could have gone up over 100 yards in this game. He had a couple targets deep that didn't quite connect. The timing was a little bit off, so it felt like he could have had a much bigger game despite only catching 5 of his 12 targets. Still produced 15 points in half PPR. And so overall, it was just really encouraging to see out of the bye. Still so much work. He's got double-digit targets in 3 of his last 4. He is dominating the workload here from the wide receiver position from the Jets. This is also coupled with Garrett Wilson. He has been not so good at all since or over the last 3 or 4 weeks. He had that amazing one-handed catch in the end zone. And since that game, he really hasn't done much at all. And he's been disappointing game after disappointing game. So, I do think Adams is the one you want to be starting moving forward. I do think the matchup against Miami, right? They do have Ramsey. But Ramsey usually, he'll do a little bit of shadowing, but not a crazy amount. He'll play most of his snaps on one side. So hopefully they can move Adams around the formation. And Rodgers is going to just keep throwing it to him like crazy. So I do really like Adams this week, and I do think he's a top 10 play at the position. Going down to the second guy I want to talk about is Marvin Harrison Jr. So we saw finally that his target share increased a lot. So, we were worried that, just most of the season, really, he just was not seeing a lot of targets. He only had 1 game of double-digit targets going into last week. But then the coach goes in front of the podium. He says, look, we want to increase his workload. We want to increase his targets. We want to make sure he's getting more involved in the offense. And that's exactly what happened. 12 targets. Obviously, McBride is a target hog. So that, but we were hoping all year that the offense was going to be concentrated into those 2 players in the passing game. And it finally was against Minnesota last week. So I hope that they stick to that moving down the rest of the season, right? And they get Seattle this week. Not the best matchup, but it's a solid matchup. I do hope with double-digit targets that he can score again, that he can get up over 75 yards in this game, maybe 6, 7 catches. So, I think he could be well on his way to another, 13 to 15 type point game in half PPR, and could be well worth the start. Another comment on Marvin Harrison, right? He has an amazing rest of season schedule already. They get Seattle this week, and then it's New Orleans, Carolina, and the Rams. If you are in a playoff spot and you have Marvin Harrison on your team, I think you should be gaining confidence, not worrying about what he's done in the past. I think he is going to have an exceptional finish to the year here. So if you have Marv, hang tight and just keep starting him, especially in these 3 wide receiver leagues. He's obviously a starter, but even if it's 2 wide receiver and a flex, I still think he's worth a start. Moving down to the next player that I want to talk about is Jeudy. So this might be low-hanging fruit because he just scored so many points. He just had 36 points in half PPR. He was up over 40 in full PPR. 9 catches, 235 yards, and 1 touchdown. He went from 30th in receiving yards to 5th in receiving yards. That is an incredible jump. And since Jameis has taken the reins, it has been incredible for Jeudy. Obviously, Tillman had the touchdowns early, right? Those first 2 games with Jameis, he had a lot of touchdowns. He scored 3 times. That was Tillman. And Jeudy didn't necessarily do so much, but Jeudy still 8 and 11 targets in those first 2 games. And then out of the bye, it's been 11, 6, and 13. He has been extremely explosive down the field too. He's averaging a ton of yards per carry. He's wide receiver 4 over this stretch. It's elevated him to wide receiver 13 on the season. I cannot stress enough how good Jeudy has been. So I will say this week, I am not necessarily as confident, right? You noticed I threw that 6 target game in there, and that was against Pittsburgh. And they go up against Pittsburgh again this week. So if Pittsburgh plays keep away a little bit better than some of the other teams do, they're able to score, they're able to run the ball against Cleveland's defense. There's a situation where Jameis throws it, less than 30 times, which is what happened last game when they played Pittsburgh, right? Obviously, it's 58 this past week, and that led to a monster game from Jeudy. Even in the 13 targets, the crazy thing about it is he was actually third on the team in targets. So it's like he went off, had this massive game, was third in targets, but he's the one. I think he's still worth a start. I just think I would start Marv over him, which might not be a popular opinion. And I think overall, he's a good start. You're starting him in 3 wide receiver leagues, and the chances that you're moving away from him just in general are really low. I mean, he's been so good with Winston. I think the floor is somewhere in that 70-yard range, even against Pittsburgh, with the ceiling of 100 and a touchdown anytime he touches the field with Winston. All right, and the last guy I want to get into here is Khalil Shakir. So Shakir has been great in terms of a catch per target, right? He has been awesome all year. That slipped a little bit in the last couple weeks. He only caught 4 of his 7 targets last week, 8 of 12 the week before that, and then 6 of 9 the week before that. And his snap share has been a little bit inconsistent. It's kind of been between 50 and 70, which is interesting for somebody as involved from a target perspective as him. But I think against the Rams, right, this is a beatable secondary. I think that the Bills are going to need to score. I hope the weather's a little bit better in this game, so obviously take this with a grain of salt if it's not. But I think Shakir in this game specifically has some upside to get into the end zone. I think he's got some target upside as well against a team that should be able to score quite a bit, and somebody that's still very much in the playoff hunt with the Rams. So the Bills need this win, obviously, to keep pace with the Chiefs, try and continue to compete for that 1 seed in the AFC. And Shakir has been much better than Amari Cooper since Cooper has joined the team, right? It has not been all that close at all. I know Cooper missed a couple weeks with injury, but he came back and still isn't really that involved in the offense, right? He's not getting a ton of targets. He only had 3 catches for 12 yards last week. I know Shakir didn't do much. I know it was, snow game, so there was extenuating circumstances around that. But I do think overall that Shakir is the one that you want to be playing, and they got a good matchup this week. So I think I have him ranked 4th of this group, but I do have him ranked, much closer to 25 than I think I saw him in certain places. And I wouldn't have a problem starting him as a top 20 play this week in 3 wide receiver leagues. He is a set it and forget it starter. I'd be looking to get him into my lineups anywhere I possibly could. All right, with that, short episode today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're still with us, hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.